in order to get into the actual Illumin, not the public site, if you go to the Madeira website, faculty and staff, and then scroll down until you find the Illumin production site login required. And this one requires the single sign-on. So,
what was your password?
right. So when you log into Illumin, I have multiple profile settings. You might just have department, faculty, or faculty. The checklist actually has directions to use the drop-down menu and put in faculty. If you are in a single discipline, it should default to your discipline. If you are in multiple disciplines, then you have to change the drop-down depending on which discipline you are going to be working on. So in my case, I'm going to do psychology. Then the second line tab is the curriculum tab. So hit curriculum. It will always default to fall 2019, so just be mindful of that. So it's the curriculum tab on the second line down. After you hit curriculum, it will come up with your dashboard, and then there is a tab next to it called curriculum library. So click the curriculum library. The curriculum library has a list of all of our courses and programs that are currently approved. So once you hit curriculum library, you'll have a course dashboard. The grayed out part is programs, but we want to focus in on the course. The easiest way to get to your class is use the course code and then type in the first few letters of your program. When you do that, it will actually reduce your list to all of your courses. Okay, so I'm going to check the checkbox for Psych 45. And then a new screen pops up, show window, view COR, or impact report. You want to hit view COR report. Okay. And then a new window, hit go to report. So by going to the report, this will give you the complete course outline for Illumin. And the thing that you need to do is hit the print button. So you're not actually printing it to a printer, you're going to print it to a PDF file. So your destination, you change the drop-down if it's not already saved to save PDF. And it could be print to something else or save as to PDF, depending on your computer version.
Where will it save it to?
As soon as you hit save, it will give you a new location window of where you want it to be saved. So I'm just going to save it on my desktop right now. In terms of the file name, in this case, do the letters, the course code, the number of the class, period, the effective date. So to look at the effective date, it will actually be where the proposal start date is, and it'll give you fall 2019 in my case. It could be spring, it could be summer, depending on what is listed as the proposal start date. So I'm going to do FA19. So course code, the 3 or 4 letters of the course, the number attached to that course, period, the proposal start date. In my case is fall 19, so FA19. The purpose of doing the year is so we can actually keep track when they're supposed to be updated, because we're also setting our processes for program review. Psych, the number, period, the 2-digit semester, and then the 2-digit year. So when you have your PDF saved for the class, so I have it up there. Depending on your version of your Adobe and how you have your Adobe set up, if you double click on it to open it, it might open it up using Adobe Pro or X, which is the paid version, but it could also open up to Adobe Reader, and you don't want to open it up in Adobe Reader because you can't do the conversion. So if yours is not the full version of Adobe, do a right click, and then do Open With, and then do Adobe Acrobat.
Which one is the full version?
Adobe Acrobat DC is a full version. Adobe Pro X is a full version.
Pro, this is Pro there.
Adobe Pro is also the full version.
Okay, good.
Each computer is different, and when IT upgraded or gave us our computer, depends on which version we have. So once we're here, you can do File, Export to Microsoft Word, and then choose Microsoft or Word document. This could be a little funky depending on your version. So mine says Export to. In this case, if you're in the Pro version, it would be File, Save As, Microsoft Word. Down. And then over to Word document. You don't want to choose the Word 1997 to 2000. That's an older version, so it won't work. Okay. If you have the name properly saved, when you saved it as a PDF, it will automatically give that name as a default, so you're not having to rename it. Okay. Now the cleanup begins. This is where it gets funky. There are some interesting characters, notations, periods, dots, bullets when you convert the PDF to a Word file. That takes some time to actually just clean it up. So the first thing is, if you can, there's a broken image here. In this case, I can't fix it where it is. But what I can do is remove Reedley College. Take out the word report. So you want it to have course outline of record, and then you're removing the date. The date defaults when you downloaded the COR, so remove that date. So you're basically cleaning up stylistics, any character spacing issues. If your course description looks funky, sounds funky, has fragments, please clean it up. The only thing that you can't do is change the unit load, because that is not what got approved through the Chancellor's office. So in this case, Terrell is not one of our faculty, so I am taking him out. So remove any authors that's from Reedley, because we need to show them, no, we can actually teach it without their help. Cheryl Hesse is our curriculum analyst. When we transitioned from CurricuNet to Illumin, she was the one who had to manually enter all of that information in, so she became the default author. So remove her name, put your name. In this area, there is a space between the end of your number of the course and the colon, so remove that space. Yay! All right, authors. There should not be an author of this course that is coming from another school. So, and there should not be Cheryl Hesse on there either. So if it, see this little down arrow, this in the ruler, you can actually move it to give you a larger space area, so you can extend. Your ruler has to be showing so you can actually see the bottom toggle of your ruler.
So we have to show margins.
View, and then click the ruler box. There is a way to remove those bullets. They just take forever. And I gotta be honest with you, I've done removing all the bullets. It took me 2 hours just for the formatting to remove all the bullets. So you're removing the author, course code all the way down. So from course code all the way down to external review date, do not delete anything in there. Stay the same. The reason stays the same. We're not changing the number or anything like that. The next, after the author, the next thing that we could change is the course description. If you are going through curriculum update this year, go through the dashboard that has the most current version that you guys have worked on. if your courses are have not gone through second read in curriculum, then you have to go through the library. So course description, if you need to change or modify your course description to make it make more sense, for some programs you really didn't have much of a hand in terms of creating the course description. So if you want to change it, make it sound better, proper sentences, because oh my goodness. The spelling errors, spacing errors, character errors. So the last sentence or the last section of your course outline will identify if you have any prereqs or co-reqs or advisories. Prereqs. Do not change them. You cannot change a prereq. No, don't. You can't change it at all because the prereqs basically help establish articulation with the CSU and UC. Once you change that prereq, then it's not an approved course, therefore we can't carry it over. Right. So prereqs must stay. If you have a prereq of Math 103, because of AB 705, you can do prereq Math 103 or equivalent, because that has already been approved through the curriculum committee as well as the board, and it's basically what we're doing. So if you have a prereq of Math 103, add the words or equivalent next to it and you're fine.
What if it's an advisory?
Advisory of Math 103 or equivalent. Yeah. Oh, right, okay. So I have a lot of ORs for math because I have a lot of different options for prereqs for Psych 45. So you're listing those out. And then in the advisories, if you have an English advisory, it should be English 1A or 1AH. The word eligibility or eligible for should be removed because that means a developmental English, not 1A or 1AH. With AB 705, everyone is eligible for English 1A, 1AH. So default is English 1A or 1AH.
So on mine it says advisory eligibility for Math 201.
We don't offer 201, so delete 201.
It is an advisory eligibility.
But yours,
This is an advisory, so eligibility for Math 201 means now they're eligible for a transfer level course as long as they have the prerequisites.
so 201 is a developmental. The lowest that we go is Math 103.
Right.
So you could change it to advisory Math 103. This is where the DevServ and possibly some counseling courses gets kind of hairy, because there are some DevServ classes that have yeah, but it is, if they're at that point, they're supposed to be going to the adult school, not. So if it's not appropriate, just remove it then since it's an advisory. But if it's a prereq, you can't touch it.
So it's an advisory, so I take
You can,
advisory and just, I'm going to leave it and write none?
so no, just take out advisory period, because if there's nothing there, that means there's none. If you have an English 1A advisory or a prerequisite, you have to have its pair. So its pair is 1AH. So either the regular English or the English 1 honors. So those two go together with an or in the middle. Anything in the parentheses, do not remove, do not touch. Because this tells us in Readley's General Ed, it fits in area A, CSUGE, UC, and then it actually gives us the CID articulation. So don't touch it if it's in the parentheses.
Can we add the CID articulation if we know what it is? It's not on.
So for submission of rationale, it's transferring course to Madera.
What if it already has something on there?
For faculty requirements, you have to look at the minimum qualifications. for that particular discipline. So for philosophy, it's a master's in philosophy. For,
Course has no value. Well, it says master's discipline preferred counseling, but under alternate, it says
so that would be if you have secondary. So an example, Psych 45 is a statistics class. So my master discipline preferred is psychology. My alternate master's would be math, because a math faculty can teach that course. So if you have another faculty and in another discipline that could teach that course, that's where you put in the alternate master. So course development has an extra space, so of course fix that. So in terms of the course development, this is where you're identifying, is it a basic skills course? Not. Most of us, our courses are not basic skills, because there is a code attached to it on the back end, so leave it as is. So really in this area, not change anything. The associated programs is where you need to pay close attention to. Reedley College has 169 programs. We are only transferring 95 programs. With all the PORs that went out, 95 got approved to transfer. There are 74 programs that we're not transferring. So pay attention. There will be a list of all of the course or all of the programs that are not being transferred. So just check that list to see, are they on here? If the degree or the program is not being transferred, then just delete that program. You have a camp class open?
Yeah, you said there will be a list. Where would we find it?
I will give you guys that list in that shared file. So like in your case, pest control associate, we're not transferring that.
So I just erase.
Just remove it, yeah. So for programs that we're not transferring, just remove those if they show up in your CORs.
Sorry, where's the list of non-transferred programs?
I will be posting a cleaner version because we just got another update at the end of last week. In that share file that I will be sending out the link to. So I'm not bogging down people's emails with a bunch of attachments. Transfer and general ed options, leave them as is, except where it says Reedley College, remove Reedley College. Transferability right below is for like if your course is part of the general ed pattern for right here.
Oh.
If your class is part of the general ed pattern of Reedley, nope. Just take it out. Do not change anything in terms of the units and hours. They are automatically calculated and defaulted. And this is what our course is articulated, so please do not edit that. But if there are spacing errors, please fix. Don't touch anything, but if there's spacing problems, please fix those.
What do you refer to as a spacing problem?
See how mine has a blue line on it? Extra space. I'm just going to remove that extra space. So in terms of time commitment to the students, leave it be. Faculty load, leave it alone. Units and hours, specialty hours, leave it alone. Only programs that have that will already have information. Everybody else will have no values. So requisites. In the course description, you have your prerequisites, advisories, or just advisories, depending on what you have in the course description. Whatever courses you have in the course description has to be listed in here in some sort of a justification, whether it's a course outline or course SLOs, or course objectives or SLOs. They have to be identified here. If it's not in here, it shouldn't be up there, but if it's up there, it should actually be in here. This is where when we transferred from Curricunet to Illumin, where a lot of issues happened because they didn't get completely migrated correctly. So you might spend the vast majority of your actual legitimate editing time fixing your prereqs or advisories. And then if you have to redo your English prerequisites, you're gonna actually have to look at the English listings of their SLOs or their outline to help with the justification. So the same way that we found our courses, you're going to go to the library and then you're going to type in ENG. So click on the English 1A, view COR report. If you're looking at the what your course content is requiring, if you go to the student learning outcomes for English, it's towards the bottom. Pull out which one of those would apply in terms of skills that they should have when they go into your course.
Do we need to have a certain amount of those?
You can have one.
Just one? Okay.
Because you're this
Just one,
you could. Of course you can have more than one.
but at least one.
At least one, because you're justifying why they should have taken this course prior to getting into your course. So prerequisites, if it's two courses that are the same but slightly different, so for instance, it's like the same but different. Site 2, it's regular versus honors. There should be the word or in between. It's either this class or that class. If it's an entirely different course, instead of the word or, it should be and. So mine is Psych 2 regular or Psych 2 or Psych 2 honors, and then I identify the math courses with an or listing. You can either use a couple of the course objectives to justify why you're recommending that course, or you can look at their SLOs, one or the other, or both if you want to, but that's a lot of work.
Okay, so do they prefer objectives or SLEs?
It's one or the other, or both. But you're basically just compiling a list of why they should take this class prior to taking your class. So it could be that they need to be able to read, be able to write.
Listing all of these things.
Yeah, so this is the English outcomes that would apply to my class. Because I'm requesting that they are able to write over a 1,500-word essay. So they need to have a proper introduction, citations, knowing the audience, potentially doing an annotated bibliography. It's just a justification why I'm suggesting for the advisories. For the prerequisites, they're a little different. So prereqs are already established because they are a series of courses.
Oh, so these aren't, that's not a prereq, that's an advisory.
That was an advisory.
Okay.
So in terms of prereq, I'm going to go up. The reason for my math prereq for my research methods is to be able for the course to be transferred to a CSU or a UC. Their research is asking for math requirements. So that's how I'm justifying why my math course is a required course for my research methods class.
Okay.
Or in chem, they have to take 1A before they can move into the next one. So you're establishing the reason because they need the concepts learned in 1A to be able to move into the next one. Or it's part of a series of courses.
So since this has already been established, I've got the prerequisites,
You leave the prerequisites as is.
and then the advisory, I can leave the advisory as is, or do I?
Depending on the advisories. What is the advisories?
So they're saying English 1A, reading composition, ability to read college level material, ability to write complete sentences while
Okay.
working here as well as the time, ability to summarize and paraphrase.
Do they have English 1A? Is English 1AH a part of that?
No, I was gonna add that.
You have to add-
Solve the box issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that would be what I would put under advisory, so it would be under
Mm-hmm.
advisory, and then I would do or English 1AH for the advisory, okay.
Correct.
How do we do the or?
What do you mean how?
Like, when I look up there, I see that it looks like there's some special formatting.
It's just how it downloaded as a text box from Illumin. Huh?
We don't have to figure that out.
You can just type in or.
Okay, now, on yours, I don't think it had the 1AH.
It does. I hope.
Okay, can you show me that, because that's all I need to
I hope.
make sure I know how I'm doing.
So I have and, because I have a set of prerequisites, and then I'm saying and advisory of 1AH, or I mean 1A. See, this is where I have to change it to an or because of an Illumin issue. I don't think any one of us has to to worry about entrance skills, so leave it blank. If your course requires an entry like an entry skill, it will already have been identified. Limits of enrollment, in our cases, leave it alone. The limitations on enrollment would be the LVN to RN program because of licensing. Speech pathology have a licensing requirement? No. If it is, it should be already listed on there. The mechanics, because of health and safety reasons, they will have limitations to their enrollment, but every other program, there's no limitations. So prereqs goes first, and then advisories go second. So if it's like 2 English classes, you're putting this or that, and Math 103.
Yeah. And we don't have to do equivalent.
Math 103 or equivalent. Just put an or equivalent and you just type it in. Because we don't have an actual spot in Illumin to do or equivalent. So you're just manually typing it in.
Okay, so that makes sense.
So like at the bottom of your Math 103,
Like that? Does that work?
specifications. Remove methods of instruction rationale. We've never actually used it. That is an Illumin feature.
Remove methods of instruction.
Rationale. It's the second column. Yeah. So this would be how you identify how you're going to run the class. This is also where you're going to identify if you're going to have an online portion, a hybrid, or a live interactive two-way presentation. If you have any one of those, then you need to make sure that you fill out the DE addendum. The DE addendum is towards the bottom, and in that file folder with the directions, I will actually give you the DE addendum information and what to fill in to each of those areas. For hybrid, it is recommended that you put in 1 through 99. Because if you put it 1 through 60, it can only be offered at the max 60%. So you want that buffer of 1 through 99 because it.
1 through 99%.
Yes, for hybrid. Because if you meet just one time on campus, that is considered a hybrid if it's an online course. In terms of assignments, you don't have to be very detailed, but enough detail that when articulation is reading it, they can kind of get an idea of how what your course expectations are. So mine are this one, because it's a research methods class and it's part of my course objectives and outlines, I got a little bit more detail in terms of my assignment to demonstrate how I'm meeting the SLOs and course objectives.
We're allowed to change those if they're.
Absolutely, you can change the assignments.
Complete 1 chapter of reading from the text.
From the text. So this would be every week they have to finish a chapter. So I provided a little bit more detail in this course than I would with my other courses, just because I want to make sure that with articulation they understand how my course is being ran.
Can we leave the words sample assignments even if it's something we're?
Yeah, so you can. The whole idea with the COR also is if you have an adjunct that's going to teach the course, they have a general idea of how the course should be ran. Methods of evaluation. Department course grade determination guidelines. So this is my suggested guidelines for my course. However, in the checklist that you will give, there is language that I have added that you could put at the bottom of methods of evaluation rationale that basically states that this is just an example, because the Title V and some other requirements of faculty can have their own way of doing their grading.
So we can make this adjustment without having to go through curriculum?
Correct.
Okay.
Where do we put that thing that you just said?
Methods of evaluation.
Underneath methods of evaluation, so here. And I will provide you with the language. You can choose to use it or not use it. I actually pulled the language from political science.
And on this one, you know, it's got like 10% projects, 20% final or whatever. And then they added 30% with nothing, so it makes it 130%. So obviously I have to remove that.
Yeah, it's gotta work. It's gotta be 100%.
But I'm wondering, does it even have to have all this percent?
So some departments put in a range,
Yeah,
10 to 20%.
10%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah. If it's specific like that, it better equal 100.
right.
But if you're giving a range, then you're fine.
Yeah, I would think that would be better, so it's not so, because here it's like it has to be at least 20% this, it has to.
No, that's why I have that language that you could put in that says that these are just the guidelines, a suggestion, but you don't have to adhere. Equipment. If your course requires equipment, please identify it there. If you do not identify, it needs a chemistry lab, it needs a physics lab, it needs a computer lab.
You don't have to label all of the actual physical equipment that we need.
No.
Generally say physics lab.
Yes. So,
Physics lab with all that stuff.
oh, perfect. So, in the equipment, if it's a specific room that you require for your course, identify it there. No. You can modify your textbooks. So when you do that, just make sure whatever textbook you're choosing does address what you're identifying in the course outline, or you can also modify your course outline as well.
Okay, cool.
So, Antoinette, again, I'm going back to the old curriculum days. When you made a change like that, it had to be reapproved.
So we were told, pretend like you are a brand new college and you're creating your own. Our limitations are you can only transfer over any programs from Ridley that has already been approved, any courses from Ridley that has already been approved. So the approval in terms of Ridley would be the program name, the type of degree, the unit load, but the nitty gritty like course outline, textbook, and all that stuff, that they're not gonna pay attention to.
Will you be public?
In terms of textbooks, if your class has a classic text, so like philosophy, for instance, you're not going to have the most recent textbook, right? Because you want them to read Aristotle. So those are acceptable if they're identified as classical text. But ideally, you should have a textbook, I'm saying within the last 5 years. But unless you have a compelling reason why. So one of my courses, there's one textbook, it's over 5 years old, but that is the most comprehensive textbook that they have for case management out there because it covers different facets. Otherwise, the course would actually require 2 or 3 different textbooks. It is suggested if you are going to plan on using OER to identify it, and you can actually put it in as a textbook if it's an OER textbook, or you could identify it in other instructional materials. So I have a suggestion for mine in terms of OER. Since there isn't an actual print version of it, I just put it under the additional resources.
And you put it under textbook center.
It's still under textbook, but under other instructional materials. If it's like an open stacks, because we do have printed tangible, then I would identify it in the regular textbook area.
So that means we can update the textbooks on this.
Yes, absolutely. Only courses that have material fees should be identified what the material fees are. I think none of our classes do, but you might have like arts, for instance, they might have a materials fee. Course objectives, if you need to make edits to them, please do. Make sure that your course objective feeds into your course student learning outcomes, and whatever you've identified basically is identified in the course description, so it's all tied together and it doesn't look like 2 different classes or a disjointed class. So objectives is what you're going to be doing in the class. Outcomes is how you're evaluating whether or not they are able to fulfill the course objectives that you have identified that they are going to be doing in class.
That's weird how it says learning outcomes and objectives, and then the objectives are in there first.
Because you're basically setting up the framework. This is what we're going to be covering in class. After we covered this in class, then the student learning outcomes, this is where I'm measuring to make sure that they did actually learn what I've identified in my outcomes. So in terms of CSLOs or student learning outcomes, some would recommend you should have 3 SLOs. You can have more, but think about you're evaluating that many SLOs. So if there's SLOs that you can collapse, great. If you can't collapse them, then leave them separate. In terms of the expected SLO performance, it should not be 0. It should not be 100%. The sweet spot is 70, but you have to look at your course itself. If this was a math course, my expected performance is not going to be at 70. At best, I'm looking at 60. Because I'm saying that 60% of my students should be able to accomplish that particular SLO. So be realistic in terms of your numbers, but kind of bump it a little higher because you're hoping you're going to get there, but don't set yourself up for unrealistic expectations. So in terms of outline, we do actually have to properly do the outline so it looks like an outline, because right now the default for Illumin, even if you properly did the outline on Illumin as you're editing that course, it defaults back to left flush. So what you would do is highlight your outline. This is where it could get kind of tricky. Just ask David Richardson. His got really funky. So the easiest way is really copying and pasting your outline to a new Word doc. And then putting
it back in.
Yes. Otherwise, because you're dealing with the text boxes, it becomes really convoluted and you will like pull your hair out. So I'm highlighting it. It's Illumin. So I copied and pasted. I'm going to do an undo. I copied and pasted to a new Word file my outline. I am going to highlight, and then I'm going to hit my my numbering, and then numbering, it's the 1 period 3. If you hit that, it should properly do an outline for you.
The 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. And then the subpoint after 1 would be ABC. And then if that ABC has a subpoint, then it should be Roman numeral in small 1, 2, 3.
Does it have to be in that format?
Yes, it does. So once you have it done, this is because when we go through articulation, they can easily read what we're saying that we're going to cover.
It makes it easier for the reviewer,
Yep.
unfortunately.
And then once you have it copied, you can just paste it in to the course outline. Ooh, went too fast.
So now it's like that.
Oh, that's good. Some are not. So I'm going to fix that later. All right. This is the point of Illumin where it could potentially vary. You might have distance ed right after your course outline. You might have pedagogical cap at the end of the course outline. You might have global or multicultural at the end of the course outline. So I am so sorry. At this point, this is where Illumin definitely gets buggy. So at this point, just look at the checklist to make sure you are doing what it is being asked for in that section, because below this area, it's not in the same order for everyone. So the first one is distance education. For this one, it is the 100% online and then the hybrid. So if you have that identified in the methods of instruction, then these need to fill out. You cannot leave anything blank. Language will be provided to you in terms of what you will fit into these areas. Because we're really looking at the ACC when they do the DE evaluations, if you're doing an online or even a hybrid, you have to identify how faculty will engage with the student and also how students will engage with the student. So there's student to student contact, faculty to student contact. So this area right here lists examples of regular and effective contact. Right now, all I have listed is the faculty-initiated contact. In the DE addendum language that you will have, it will have the faculty-initiated, and then it will also have the student-initiated. So you have to have both. So additional equipment, I was very naive when I wrote this update. A computer, laptop, tablet, or smartphone with internet access is required. Smartphone, they can kind of work through it, but really it's not preferable because the Canvas app is decent, but they can't fully do everything on the Canvas app. So I'm going to remove this and then just put in computer, laptop with internet access. We always have to have a contingency plan. There was a faculty member, not our own, who basically said that our LMS will never fail. A week later, Canvas went down. It will fail, so we need to have a contingency plan. This is a language that we are having a discussion at curriculum. What other pertinent information should be shared with the committee? Classes, assignment of classes is admin privilege. So they can technically have a person not online certified teach an online portion of this class. From a student standpoint, you really want the faculty member to be certified online to teach that course. Not only because they need to be able to check accessibility, they also need to know the functionality. Otherwise, students can get really confused. So this one, I have the word can. You can remove the word can and put should. Right here. Only faculty who are approved to teach online can facilitate this course. It is actually in the language in the DE addendum. I can, basically for me was definitive, but then I was told you need to go a little softer, so should. So global multicultural materials. If you are going to cover or have information regarding global issues or multicultural diversity issues, international issues, whichever, please fill those out. This is our way to show the State Chancellor's Office, the CSU, UC, that we are providing some sort of ethnic studies within the broad term of our courses. Fresno City actually has an area in their GE that says ethnic studies. We don't, because we're choosing to do it this way. Pedagogical cap. Most of us have caps of 50, but again, it depends on the course. So the English department, their cap is 30, 35. So like Reedley College for psych, soc, history, I think history. So going back to the pedagogical cap, really that's admin that sets it. We can provide a recommendation. So based on our history, 50 is the default unless you're in a specialized class like math or English, for instance, where they can have a lower cap. So in terms of articulation, this is where you need to contact your counterparts at City, at Clovis, at Reedley, and let them know, hey, these are the courses that we're going to be transferring to Madera. Will you accept this in lieu of your course? And get it in writing, so email. And then you're providing documentation. So this one, the local articulation is kind of twofold because there is the face value. You have Psych 2 there, we have Psych 2 here. Well, is that equivalent? But
all the same areas.
But that's the second point that's not in here.
Yeah.
Is so Psych 16, for instance, in our area, it's in multiple areas in the GE pattern, and they only have it in one area, which is social sciences. So if a person has already hit their social sciences requirements and they're trying to take Psych 16 to count as our area in health, for instance, it can't because their GE counts it as social sciences, where our GE counts it as social sciences and health. So it goes in one or the other, or it can go both. Yeah.
Choose which one they want it in, but they can move it around. If they took it at city,
So yeah.
as ours, they can't move it.
So the local articulation is just, is it equivalent? That's it. It's not talking about the general ed pattern. That's a whole nother discussion.
Okay, it just means it's the same course.
Yes. So you're identifying, do they have a similar course? What department it falls into? You have to identify the faculty that you contacted. That's why I get it in an email that says yes or no. So identify all of the courses you're transferring in, send it all in one email. They respond back, hopefully they do. If they don't, we have an argument, hey, we did inform, we just didn't get anything back, so we're defaulting to, yes, it's the same. If they say, yes, it's the same, if we have any issues at ECPC, we have evidence, we have documentation to say, hey, your faculty experts in that area says yes, so therefore it's yes. You can't say we cannot transfer that course or it's not equivalent course. It gives us more teeth. So identify the subject, the course title, and then yes or no in terms of accepting. This is where Illumin gets funky for me. So mine now after Clovis is now showing the two-way DE.
So here's DE. And then,
This is where it gets funky.
I know, and then global, and then let it go on.
Yeah, after the course outline, anything below that, it can go in any order. There's no rhyme or reason. You may or may not have it either.
Oh my God. Okay, so
If you don't have this part, it is actually a part of the checklist that you can just copy and paste it. Yeah. It's an Illumin thing.
yeah.
And you're going to probably hear a lot of, it's an Illumin issue.
So it's starting with the.
So two-way live interactive, this would be the DE for two-way, so that would be a Polycom, where you're doing distance ed through the Polycom room, which right now we only have one. And there is going to be verbiage in terms of what to put into these areas. So fix any sort of spacing issues that you will find. And then just fill it out accordingly. And then in my case, my last area is Fresno Cities. Then fill out if they have an equivalent course. Some do, some don't. Does Fresno City or does Clovis have this course? If yours is a no, then you don't have to fill out the rest of it. Yeah, we don't actually have match. It's basically, do they have a similar course and will they accept it? Not, does it match?
So we're taking that off.
We've never had match on Illumin. All right, any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop.